This movie, I think, is I like it. I think it kind of worked because you took like Diane Keaton. Just when you watch her on screen, she's a great actress. But to me, I'm like,
That's how she
hard not.
Diane stay eaten.
There you go. It's hard not to
Great
think about
acting.
like Annie Hall and shit and all these other rom-coms she's been in. She plays like a similar type character and plays it the same way, but it works kind of anachronistically to like insert that same vibe into an old-timey setting like this because like what you were saying earlier, Anders, it's like these people were anachronistic. They were forward thinking and they stuck out in their time or whatever. So like for almost looks like it feels like looking at like one of those black and white photos where they color one thing in and it pops out a little bit and it like plays with, this duality or whatever. And the fact that they were all free love freaks, I think is also really interesting because it's Brooklyn, man. It's the same thing. It's everyone's a poly-communist or whatever, or is at the very least like
until the purge.
Yeah,
It's a big part of the film.
Right. But like throwing those sorts of questions around, it's interesting that they're able to like tell a story that pushes on those sorts of social boundaries and stuff within the confines of what is like a kind of a romantic movie, which itself is a trad sort of monogamistic thing to do. I don't know. It's cool. I'm glad that they were able to like it seemed like they just thread the needle between a lot of things and they were able to tell the story really well.
Yeah, it's all about contradictions. It's a good Marxist tale in that way. Yeah.
I was thinking like if it could have been adapted to this format, which you couldn't do in 1981, it would be like a great like HBO mini series. But you could also not sell this now with this concept as an HBO miniseries unless it's like, can you be a communist in Middle Earth?
Right. That's why I was so kind of confused when I was watching this because I'd never heard of this. And it just seemed like one of those things where it was like, wow, why didn't everyone talk about this in like 2016 or something? Like, why wasn't this huge deal? Because this isn't an obscure movie. This movie was nominated for like Best Picture and shit. It was nominated for like it almost swept the Oscars.
Yeah, he won Best Director.
Yeah.
Longest picture.
But it seems crazy to think about because it seems to violate all of these conceptions that I have now living in America now, where it seems like there's shit you can't really say and stories you're not allowed to tell. I think this is why a lot of older leftists have this thing where they overlap with liberals a lot harder than us, and they don't have like this dividing line. It's because like they grew up at a time when I don't know, this stuff wasn't being singled out and made illegal and stuff like that.
Well, you weren't. I mean, while the Soviet Union was around in American culture, there were not people lining up to say good things about it. I mean, and those people that were like singled out and asked to leave the country or thrown in jail. So deliberately a few times. So that's a choice. And the reason in 1981, I guess this just seems so strange to me, and maybe Andrews, you know a little bit more about this, is I think the setting they're going for is like two old romantics who are thrown into politics by the scale of their passion, despite the fact not knowing, as we know now, the Soviet Union is the devil's playground.
Right, that's why they put all those old people in the movie to constantly fucking
to remind you, like, I don't like it, and I'm famous.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I don't think this movie would have gotten made without the will of Warren Beatty. He was able to build a lot of credibility in Hollywood and convince Paramount to produce it. And this was at a time, remember, when directors had a lot more autonomy, where Hollywood was more concerned with artistic merit in a way that they're not as much now. And this is right around the time. I think this actually may have been the same year or perhaps a year or two after, but Heaven's Gate was this movie, not the cult, but this blockbuster movie that they spent a ton of money on, and this was in the era where you're a director, you got carte blanche. We're in the business of making art, and we want you to fulfill your vision. And Heaven's Gate totally bombed, and that changed the system. So the studios started taking back control and all that stuff. But Warren Beatty, I think because he's Warren Beatty, and this was right around the time that was happening, so this kind of inched in, got in the back door. He refused any notes or oversight from the studio. He was like, "This is my movie. I'm going to make." He wrote it with another writer who's a Marxist because he loved the story and its history, you know. And I think that's how a lot of people justified it. It's like, well, people should know about the history. This is our country, and we love freedom of speech in America, you know. So it, for that reason, I guess it didn't seem as weird. I think because it was about Americans primarily, and this is part of American history.
Old backdoor Beatty.
The strangest thing about this, though, is Warren Beatty actually screened it in the White House for Reagan, and Reagan liked it. And his only complaint was
moving pictures.
But his only complaint was like, it's a sad ending. But other than that, he thought it was a good movie, supposedly. So
it is a very sad ending.
Yeah.
Why did he kill the communists from inside their hospital?
It's true. The access he had inside that hospital.
Yeah. I think it's, I think just artistically, not even with political stuff necessarily, but that certainly is a huge part of it.
I think that that kind of speaks to like the American schizophrenic mindset about things like this, where it's so forbidden to see something like this for what it is, which is a story, you know, that's portraying a communist revolutionary kind of defector almost in like a positive light. That's like so absurd that you can only see it as an individuated story about a guy who just some things happen to, and like everything else is just like happenstance and setting or whatever.
Right.
Yeah. There are a few nods in the movie too. If you are a Ronald Reagan towards the end where he's in the Soviet Union post-revolution and they're like, I'm not sure this revolution's all it's cracked up to be. Where if you were on the other side, you'd be like, see, I'm all right. I'm back on board.
I could see where, yeah.
Between the love story with like what they're talking about with like free love and also the main sort of questions of the revolution, this movie scared the shit out of me a few times where I was like, are they about to fucking compromise all of this really hard and have like a moral lesson at the end where it turns out this was all a bad idea and don't do this or whatever? But they didn't do it.
I should have married Eugene O'Neill.
Yeah, right. I mean, I was wondering a few times, like, is this just gonna are they gonna stamp a Hollywood ending onto it? Because like that's like every movie is guy gets the girl and then he makes her his wife and then the credits roll and don't ask about what happens after that. You know,
there's that famous line, "I could have had that potato dick."
Yeah, she said that. It's crazy. No,
well, I keep saying my favorite part, but this I think probably is my favorite part of the movie. Emma Goldman is a character referred to as E.G. I
was going to say, when he starts saying, okay, I know we're jumping all over this fucking movie. I was watching this 3 a.m. It's 3 hours long. The character Jack Reed talks like an old timey radio guy. When he's friends with Emma Goldman and he starts referring to her as like, E.G., listen to me, I like jumped out of my chair and I was just like, Anders. I was pointing at the screen and going, why is he talking like Anders?
Anders, it was a time where everyone was Anders.
That's what Anders would have called Emma Goldman if he was friends with her.
It's me in another life.
It really is, man.